What's good, everybody? We are back with another Call of Duty mobile video. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. So as you guys know, last night was the release of Season 6 of Call of Duty Mobile, which came with the release of a new gun, the Outlaw. Now, this gun is the newest sniper in Call of Duty Mobile and is actually available for free in the Call of Duty Mobile Battle Pass. I believe people were saying at level 12 is when you can get it for free, or if you buy the Battle Pass, you can go ahead and get it at level 1. So I tested it out a lot last night and wanted to do a comparison video for the 4 main snipers in the game, those being the DLQ, the Locust, the Arctic 50, and now the Outlaw, since those are the bolt-action snipers, or at least the snipers that behave like a bolt-action. The Arctic 50 technically is not a bolt-action, but does similar damages to the other bolt-actions in the game. So I had already gone ahead and done the comparisons for the DLQ, Locust, and Arctic before the release of the Outlaw, so that I can basically just throw this one in there once I was done testing out everything that I needed to. I will go ahead and say my initial thoughts on the Outlaw are that it feels like a hit marker machine. It's definitely going to be a weapon that requires a lot of mastery, but I will also go ahead and say a huge shout out to Hawksness for a picture that he sent to the Content Creators Discord that gave me a better idea of why it is that the Outlaw works the way that it does. So I'll explain that more later on and it'll make more sense. But like I said, the initial test is going to be comparing the different lethal zones of all the different guns, so that effectively means what area on the player you need to hit in order to one-tap them. Keep in mind, every single one of these guns is using the silencer just to test whether or not that affects the range on it. As you can see by the fact that it's going to one-tap on each of these guns, it is not impacting the range at all, which just means that the stats that the game is showing you about the silencer aren't actually true, at least for sniper rifles. As you guys will see from these tests, the DLQ does have the largest lethal zone in that it is able to one-shot somebody from basically the bottom of the stomach all the way up. This character's skin is really useful for testing these because it basically has 3 different sections of the player's stomach that'll help you to be more precise when you're testing what areas you can hit in order to one-tap somebody. As you guys saw, you can one-tap somebody just barely higher with the Arctic 50 than you can with the Locust. So I'll go ahead and put the graphic up on the screen displaying the different lethal zones for the first 3 sniper rifles in the game. But once we start testing the Outlaw, it gets really interesting because effectively the gun has the same lethal zones on the body area as the Arctic 50. And as a gun with a much quicker scope in time, you would think that it's going to make it a lot more viable. But there's something about the Outlaw that actually makes it hit marker more than the other guns, because unlike the other guns, you're able to hit marker somebody on their hand to forearm area. So I went ahead and tested this out with all of the other sniper rifles, and the Outlaw is the only gun that will hit marker somebody on their forearm or hand area, which makes it seem like the gun hit markers a lot more, because there will be a lot of times where you are aiming to that chest and above area and it seems like it'd be a one tap, but the arms or the hands are getting in a way and you're hitting those instead of the player's actual body. I will go ahead and say this puts the Outlaw at a huge disadvantage compared to other snipers in the game, because there's only so much that you can control when it comes to whether or not you hit a player's arm or body, especially since most players will hold their gun up here. When I was taking the test for the Outlaw, I was forcing the player to be holding a grenade, but for the most part, whenever a player is running around in game, they're going to be holding a gun, and because of that, their arms, especially their forearm and their hands, are going to be blocking their chest a lot, which is just going to make it a lot more difficult to one-tap somebody, at least from the front. Now, I did notice last night it was a lot easier to one-tap somebody from behind, and that is because you don't have to worry about that forearm hand factor messing up your one-taps and forcing you to hit marker. But moving on, I did want to go ahead and test the different factors of the different guns as well. So one thing I wanted to test real quick was just see if using the scope in button versus the ADS to scope in button changed anything at all. It didn't seem to do so for any of the snipers. I also wanted to test the scope in and shot times of each of the different snipers. So those will be up on the screen and I'll compare all of them at the end, and then right here you're going to see the sway pattern of each of the snipers as well. For the most part, this didn't really vary a whole lot. Some of them had different shapes, but for the most part, they all had relatively similar sway patterns. The one gun that was significantly apart from the rest in regards to its shots per second was obviously the Arctic 50, since technically it's actually not a bolt-action sniper, but behaves in a very similar way. The Arctic did have more of a rectangular sway, more of like a diagonal rectangle, if anything. The Locust might have had a tiny difference in scope in time with the ADS button as compared to the shoot to ADS button, but for the most part seemed relatively the same and had a similar rate of fire to the DLQ as well. One thing that you'll go ahead and see with the Outlaw is, like I said, with the other snipers, the press to ADS and the actual ADS button have the exact same scope in time. I would say the guns do have pretty unique sway patterns, so the Outlaw's sway pattern is pretty close to the Locust's sway pattern in that it kind of does a little bit of a figure eight. It's not very precise and changes up a lot, but it's relatively similar and not something that you're going to have to worry about a whole lot. In regards to rate of fire, the Outlaw comes in right in between the DLQ and the Locust, so it doesn't have a crazy fast rate of fire, but that's typically not something you're going to expect out of a bolt-action sniper anyway. And then the one category where the Outlaw does clearly have an advantage over all the other snipers is the scope in time, in that it does have the fastest scope in time of the four. You'll see it here, all four of them slowed down to 5% speed, just so you can see what the difference really is. The Arctic 50 and the Locust having almost identical scope in speeds, the Outlaw being the fastest and the DLQ being the slowest, which makes sense given that it does have the largest lethal zone. One final thing to keep in mind is that the Outlaw does have better mobility than the rest of the sniper rifles, which is going to make it easier to move around. But there's also been a nerf that happened to snipers recently. I still need to do some more testing on it. I don't know if it happens only with the Outlaw, but effectively you cannot slide immediately after taking a shot. Basically, you have to be in your sprint animation after taking the shot, which takes a little bit of time, and that puts snipers at a severe disadvantage. I didn't notice it until I was using the Outlaw, but I'm definitely going to have to do some more testing on that as well. But moving on to my overall thoughts of all four guns and which is going to be the best option for ranked gameplay. As of right now, the DLQ is still going to be my number one option when it comes to sniping, because even though it does have slower movement and a slower scope in time, as well as a slower rate of fire, that larger lethal zone just helps in so many situations that it's difficult for me to justify not using the gun. If you are a crazy accurate sniper that does not need to worry about lethal zones and knows for sure that you can aim for the upper chest and head area, then I would recommend going ahead and using the Arctic 50, simply because it does have the exact same scope in time as the Locust and has a crazy faster rate of fire, which gives it a huge advantage over the Locust. In most situations, I would not recommend the Locust at all, simply because it just doesn't have enough advantages over the Arctic 50. Yes, it does have maybe like a 1-inch difference in its lethal zone, but for the most part, I feel like the Locust just doesn't give enough advantages when it comes to sniper rifles in the game. For people that would consider themselves to be really aggressive snipers, then the Outlaw can be a really good option. The combination of its mobility and its scope in time make it really useful at close ranges. With that being said, in most close range fights, you are going to be face to face with the person that you're fighting, which means there's a lot higher chance that you're going to be hitting their forearm or their hand area, which is going to result in a hit marker. So if you are going to try to use the Outlaw, you 100% need to be using a pistol as your secondary, because there's a very good chance that you're going to be hit markering a lot, and you want to be able to follow up with those pistol shots in order to ensure your kill. Couple tips for using the Outlaw. Number one, if you can take a shot at somebody from behind, absolutely do it, because that is going to increase your odds of not hit marking them by a significant amount. Like we said before, the Outlaw and the Arctic 50 do have the exact same lethal zones, with the exception of that forearm to hand area. So if you're shooting them from behind, you're going to have the exact same odds, but you have the advantage of that extra scope in time and the extra mobility that the Outlaw provides as well. Aside from that, it is a really cool gun. I love that they added an animated skin for it at level 1 of the Battle Pass, which is a really cool thing, as well as the ability to get it for free in the Battle Pass at level 12. I always love when they bring new guns to the game and give everybody the ability to get it, rather than forcing people to pay in order to get these new guns. But that is going to be it for our sniper guide for Season 6 of Call of Duty Mobile. Like I said before, if you guys find these videos helpful, please make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe subscribe button if you haven't already. We are almost to 400,000 subscribers on the channel, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me. Keep in mind, when I hit 300,000 on this channel, I wasn't even playing Call of Duty Mobile. So the fact that we were able to transition from that game over to a new one and actually be able to build an audience there just means so much to me, and I'm actually able to partner with COD Mobile now as well, which is another huge opportunity. So that is going to be it for the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, drop a like down below and subscribe to the squad if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.